Events. What is an event as far as iOS is concerned? An event is something that happens discretely in time. So for example, when I click a button, an event is fired around that process. Or if I had something like a music streaming app, for which I do have tutorials out there, when the music stops streaming, an event is also fired to say music has stopped, or if the music is buffering, an event can be fired for that. So a real simple way of looking at events is to open up just a single view project. Any one of your old ones will do that you've used from this course. And what we're going to do is drop in to our main storyboard a couple of buttons. So I'll just put them over here, and I'm not going to bother constraining them because we know how to do that. Right, I'm going to give the first button a name of button 1 and the second one a name of button 2 so we can identify them. Then when we save that, those buttons are of course propagated to our view controller designer. So we have a generated outlet, which means we can access them in the view controller. Now inside of our view.did.load, we can assign an event to button 1 for any of the events that are provided, like all touch events or our classic touch up inside. And so the way we do that is by dropping a sender and some arguments. And there we go, we have our button 1. And this is an event, and of course, when the event fires, this method is called. So what if I want to do the same for button 2? Well, I could do a repeat of this code, or I can just remove this code for now, have a plus equals, and then make up a method stub for it. Then I could also have button 2 dot touch up inside plus equals, and that method should appear inside of there. Whoops, I've put it in the wrong place, sorry about that. I want button 2 dot touch up inside plus equals, and then I think it's going to send it down again. There we go. Okay, so I have my button 1 and button 2 that both respond with the same block of code. So this is just a neat way of cutting down on our code for events. And then inside of the touch up inside, we can actually ask to see which button sent us. So we can say if the sender is equal to button 1, then we can do something, whatever we want to do. Console write line num1, and then we can have an else, and that would be some other code to do with button 2. So you can see already how this is cut down on the code, rather than if we set up a different method stub for each of these. Right, buttons can also have multiple events subscribed to in the same handler. And how do we do that? Well, let's remove this button 1 and button 2 and just have button 1 dot add target. And you'll see target asks us for an event handler and a UI control event inside of its arguments. So of course the handler is button 1 touch up inside. Then it asks us for the events associated with this handler. So of course these are controlled or contained under UI control event dot. Then we have a list of events that respond or that the button can invoke. So we can have touch up inside, And then let's put the pipe symbol in, or, and that's just above your right shift on the keyboard. We can have a UI control event dot touch cancel, for example. So now the event will get called both on touch up inside and on touch cancel. And that's a little bit shorter way of explicitly saying button1.touchup inside and button2.touch cancel. Right, so that covers buttons, but if I go back to main storyboard and I drop in other things, let's say I drop in a label, and of course let's give this a name of label, and then come back to our view controller after we save that. Let's see what label has. Label dot. Now if I click touch, there is no event around that. And in fact, let's scroll through and see if there are any events to do with the label. I haven't seen a yellow E yet, so I'm willing to bet there isn't one. I haven't done this before, honest. This is the first time I've discovered if it has events or not. And it doesn't have any events. Of course, you could subclass your UI label and create some of your own events if you wished, but that's a bit more of an advanced topic. And if you want to know about that, just search for .NET events. There are lots of tutorials out there on how to create your own. So if you are planning on making an app that uses events, don't rely on certain items, for example, an image view or a label, to have events associated with them. Always check first that they have the event that you might want. As my last piece of advice, if you have a button and you'd rather display an image but allow the user to click the image, button does have, if I scroll down here in the properties, a default image and a background image that you can assign. So in that sense, you can have an image button. Okay, that's a quick rundown of events in Xamarin, and I've given you a couple ways of subscribing to events and cutting down on the code clutter by allowing multiple objects to fire off the same methods.